Is it recording already? Okay. So, the first question is, could you describe your relationship to jazz and how do you think jazz affects the Pioneer Valley?
Well, I guess my relationship to jazz is just when I got into drumming, I started, I grew up listening to a lot of rock, R&B, soul, that kind of thing. And I just sort of started digging. I wanted to know where that came from, who those guys listened to. And, I uncovered a lot of the obvious choices, such as Miles Davis, all the sidemen that played in his group. And it just creates a spider web from, these giants, You look at because I'm a drummer, I looked at the rhythm sections. And I noticed that all these guys were on all these other records. And the next thing I knew, I had 100 jazz records, or I had, And so what it means, it's really important to me. I just think it's something that kind of got, I don't want to say swept under the rug in popular culture, but it's just somebody has to keep the tradition going. It's one of our only, American pastimes, and I find it extremely important, to keep the torch burning.
So,
or what have you.
You mentioned that it's kind of an American pastime, and from some of the interviews, what I'm getting is there was a jazz scene in the Five College area because some of the schools have had jazz ensembles and things of that sort, but this has been kind of the first frequent community. Is that new? How long have you been in the area? Is that true? Could you talk a little bit about what the workshop has meant for the Pioneer Valley?
I guess. Well, I'll just go back to the thing with within the Pioneer Valley. Since I believe the '70s, there's been a lot of history in jazz here. A lot of guys. I don't know exactly who did the hiring or why they came up here, but guys like Max Roach were up here. That's an extremely important name for me when I heard Max was living up here. And there's all kinds of, I don't know, a lot of it has to do with the college scene. Just young people and the arts. The universities have money to support the art scene, I guess. And it's really rare in the Pioneer Valley because you usually see this kind of scene in a city, in a more urban area where, I don't know why that is or whatever. I don't know. The Valley's an interesting place because you get a lot of exposure to arts and things that normally wouldn't be in a rural environment, Yeah.
So
it's unique.
Yeah, so I guess going off that, you kind of mentioned that there's something about this actual scene, not just jazz being in the PV, but the scene that's been created by the workshop. Could you kind of describe what a night is like?
Sure, yeah. On any given night, it doesn't really, we featuring a different artist every week is great because each artist will bring their own, people, their supporters. And then, maybe somebody came to see Giacomo Gates or Gary Smullian, and then they say, oh man, this happens every week. And then they come, maybe a month later or whatever, and they see somebody they'd never heard before, and they're like, wow. So each time we get a guest artist, we expose new people to the scene. Next thing we know, we've got a full room of people almost every week. And I don't know what it is. It's just, I think, involving the musicians in the community is a big part of our success. So it's not just, hey, look at us playing. It's like, hey, check this out, and now come and join us, and let's have a conversation. Let's play a tune together. And without having a place to congregate, there's no scene. There's no music scene unless you have a central, home base or something. And I think guys like Paul, and Dave Shapiro, who passed away last year, but Paul and Dave really started the session, and Dave was insisting to get me because we had done a bunch of gigs together, and he wanted to have younger people involved as well. So this music is taught within academia, but it's really more of an oral tradition if you look at the history of jazz. It's passed down on the bandstand. It's passed down from the older guys, the old timers, you know. And you know, the way to get a young guy involved is to bring him up and say, check this out, you know, how about this and this and this, and then the kid goes home and learns all the tunes he didn't know and comes back, and now we're passing it on. And without passing it on, it's just gonna
Yeah.
cease to exist.
Which is really cool. I mean, we did an interview with Eric, is it Spears or Piers? Eric Piers, the young
Eric.
drummer.
Eric. I'm not
Piers,
sure his
the
last
young
name.
drummer who always comes in the jam session.
Yeah.
And just watching him watch you, you're right. He learns so
Yeah.
much from kind of being a part of that, like you said, that
Yeah.
tradition. It's like he spoke about how he kind of learned stuff in class and he reads books, but it's just so much different when he gets to go there on a Tuesday night and he's around an older crowd and he's just watching and
Yeah,
learning.
you see something
It's
happen,
that.
and then you go and you maybe emulate it
Mhm.
when you get up to play or when you get home. But next thing you know, it becomes part of your vocabulary, right?
Yeah,
So
which has been really cool.
it's great. And I had, where I grew up in the New Haven area, there was a place called Cafe 9, and I used to go there on Saturday afternoon, and
Yeah.
get it handed to me every week. I'd come and I'm left-handed, so I'd have to switch the drums around, and I'd have some, older guy, like,
Yeah.
who's this kid, like coming in. And after a while, they respected the fact that I kept coming back and learning the tunes. And so without that, I probably wouldn't I wouldn't be playing anymore if I hadn't had that kind of support from, from my elders,
Yeah.
what have you,
So, could you describe what's your role in the community? I mean, there's musicians who visit, there's the guests, there's audience
Yeah.
members. Just could you talk a little bit about your role in this community?
Well, I live here, so it's also really important to have this in the community where I live. I mean, I'm a full-time musician. That's what I do. I wake up and I'm either practicing, networking, going to a gig. I'm driving somewhere. It's like for me, working a day job. Come home, I'm too tired to practice sometimes. It's like then I would go out and do a gig and not feel, knowing that I could sound better if I had more time to practice. And I just decided to take the plunge and play for better, or, for what, it's just what I mean, music is the most important thing to me. So what does it mean to have a happening scene near where I live? It means everything, to have guys like Paul and George to play with every week, to meet all the musicians that have come up from New York and just get to hear a little bit of their thing. And it's just like, it's really special,
It is. So,
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of leading up to like the last question. Everyone's said there's something special about this scene. Could you just give us a story, anything just one story that comes to mind that you can think of that just really emulates what the workshop really means to you?
I mean, just looking out and seeing, now that we've been doing it for 2 years, all these new friends that I've made that I would have probably never crossed paths with otherwise. And now it's like, we get together and it feels kind of like family, We're all celebrating music and togetherness and positivity. I think that's what we all want is to feel welcome and comfortable somewhere and feel like you're a part of something. And I think that's why we all come back, I look forward to I play gigs all week, but I look forward to Tuesday, Wednesday morning I'm like, oh man, who do we have next week? Who's up, And as you know, the lineup just continues to be impressive, and when you start hearing about guys in New York or Boston contacting us that they want to come out and be a part of it, then you start to realize, wow, this is something that, that we need to kind of, keep going, keep happening.
Yep.
Well, it's guys like you too that keep it happening, So
We're going. Yeah, we're really happy.
we
to be doing
appreciate
this.
that.
So
Yeah.
thank you so much for your
No
interview.
problem. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Hope you can get out and enjoy the rest of the day.
Oh yes, I will for sure.
And I'm sure John